Hey guys, it's your boy Roy with another video here today, and today we are going to talk about the play Mark Antony and Cleopatra. You guys asked a lot of questions about the play, but however, I'm going to answer the two most liked questions. How and why does Shakespeare convey Mark Antony's vacillations between restraint and excess within the play? And what's the difference between Antony and Caesar's priorities between self and state? Now, getting straight into the first question, Shakespeare incorporates the theme of the struggle between reason and emotion. From the start of the play, Antony is seen with Cleopatra being unfaithful to both his wife Fulvia and his empire Rome. In Act 1, Scene 1, the Roman view Antony as a military hero and a wise leader. However, in the line, let Rome in Tiber melt and the wide arc of the ranged empire fall, declares his love for Cleopatra and abandoning his thoughts for Rome, changing his character completely. However, the play pursues the battle of reason being restraint and emotion being access. This is done through by Antony vacillating between the two cultures, Western being Rome and Eastern being Egypt. The Western brings out the traits of responsibility and duty, strengthening Antony's decisions towards reason. An example of this is in Act 2, Scene 2, when Antony marries Octavia. In addition, in Act 2, Scene 3, Antony states to Octavia, Octavia, read not my blemishes in the world's report. I have not kept my square, but that to come shall all be done by the rule. Good night, dear lady. Promising to keep faithful to Octavia, showing restraint and control. Antony seems to have come to his Western view once more, showing traits of loyalty and reason, portraying a noble, disciplined man until an Eastern influence reaches his grasp. The soothsayer in Act 2, Scene 3 describes of Antony's luck if he is near Caesar and how Caesar will overpower Antony if he stays in Rome. Furthermore, the soothsayer suggests that Antony return to Cleopatra, which he does in Act 3, Scene 6, again referring back to his emotions. From there, his Western traits start to shift and change into the East. Later, in Act 3, Antony and Caesar go into war. His advisors beg him not to fight at sea or bring Cleopatra to the battlefield. Cleopatra suggests both naval battle and her participation in the war. Antony, following his emotions instead, leads himself to his loss in Act 3, Scene 10, where Anabarbus describes of the battle as a win until Cleopatra fled the battlefield and Antony quickly followed. This completely contradicted his image of himself as a noble Roman hero, and his soldiers were disgusted by his attitude. Later on, he goes into the second naval battle and loses from Cleopatra's forces abandoning him during the battle. He becomes enraged on the fact that Cleopatra had betrayed him and vows to kill Cleopatra. Upon hearing the rumor of Cleopatra's suicide, he comes to the realization of his shifting character in Act 4, Scene 14, where he says to Eros, sometimes we see a cloud that's dragonish, a vapor sometime like a bear or a lion, a towered citadel or a pendant rock, describing himself as a cloud that cannot take a proper shape which constantly shifts in nature. Soon afterwards, he follows his emotions once again and states that he would maintain honor only through suicide, a Roman killing a Roman. In conclusion, Shakespeare shows vacillation of restraint and access through comparison of reason and emotion. He also uses Antony's shifting character that is influenced by his location. Now, exploring the second question, Antony's shifting character throughout the play shows him prioritizing both self and state. However, through the first question, we know that Antony pursued his pleasures by returning to Cleopatra, cheating on both of his wives and betraying his empire, and is evidently can conclude to say he is self-centered, therefore prioritizes self over state. Caesar, on the other hand, is seemed to be prioritized to the state. However, I regard Caesar as the villain, equally self-prioritizing as Antony. Critic Robert P. supports my view on his article on English literature. Quote, Octavius sought only to satisfy his personal ambition. This can be first seen in the play in Act 3, Scene 4, where he starts a war with his ally Pompey. Then in Act 3, Scene 5, expels one of the triumvirs, Lepidus, through an accusation. During Act 3, Scene 4, and Scene 5, Antony is seen with Octavia as Caesar tells her to stay by his side. Antony and Octavia part ways as Antony goes to Egypt to gather war support. However, Caesar, using this opportunity in Act 3, Scene 6, tells Agrippa and Maecenas of Antony's supposed betrayal, clearly using Octavia as bait, and he used both characters in order to cause the war against Antony. He claims that he is angered by Antony's actions and starts a war from not receiving the rightful amount of treasures from the victory of the previous war and being disloyal to his sister. Caesar, pursuing his personal gains, he fights and defeats Antony and Cleopatra. However, his political ambitions grow even past the sole ruler of Rome. He plans to take Cleopatra to Rome to parade her through the city, which benefits himself in honor, popularity, and status. As a self-titled hero, he derives Cleopatra to suicide, conquering the lands of Egypt. All this power came from the manipulation and using of the other characters, which represent Caesar's selfish attitudes. Referring back to the critic, he also stated, the triumvirate supposedly conceived to preserve the peace became an instrument by which to fulfill personal ambition. I could not agree more with this statement, as Caesar does use the triumvirate to fuel his ambition, causing wars only to benefit himself. Therefore, that is why Caesar and Antony are both self-prioritized, and Caesar more selfish than his fellow member Antony. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you liked what you saw today, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Now let's go get this Shakespeare